Raiders! It's Raiders Fan Radio, a podcast by Raiders fans for Raiders fans who are the only fans that matter. That's right, Murf and Sonny from the Dago Dungeon. You got it right here, live.
Touchdown! Kenny Stabler goes all the way.
We miss you, we love you, and we'll see you in the Hall of Fame.
When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing. Just win, baby. I love this team. I think this team can win. I think this team can win.
Welcome in to episode number 40 of Raiders Fan Radio. I am your host, Sonny Dago. With me in studio, as always, is your second favorite host of this radio show on Facebook, even though he has more Facebook friends than me right now, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
Welcome, Murf. Murf, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Our show is 40 episodes old. That quarterback of that one team that we shall not speak has turned 40 years old this week, but more importantly, we are six days away from the first Raiders preseason game, which, Sonny, I'm kind of looking forward to. Do you like watching the preseason? I kind of like nowadays watching the preseason.
I like watching it for about 5 minutes, which is what used to be the average watch time for a Raider game when they sucked, and that they had a chance to win the game was the first 5 minutes of the game. I like watching them a little more now versus back in the day. More importantly, Murph, every Sunday from now on is essentially a football Sunday. We have made it, right? We've gone through all the months, March, February, May, April, whatever the order of those months are in. We are now at the point where every Sunday or weekend essentially should be football related, which is awesome. Now Sports Center is watchable again, and it's not just baseball and whatever obscure sport they find. And it's here, and it's awesome, and I'm excited. Also, what I'm excited about, Murph, is our social media interactions. Appreciate everybody who interacts with us on Facebook and Twitter, but mainly Facebook. We found a lot more traction and fun interactions on Facebook versus Twitter. Our show is called Raiders Fan Radio, and we set out to not be just another show that tries to chase down players and chase down former players and all that kind of stuff. We exist to talk about our fandom, first and foremost, to talk about the Raiders, whom we love, but then also to talk to you and talk to other people, whether it's indirectly or directly, interviews on the show, via social media, about your fandom as well. And it just seems that of late, it's been really increasing. Our Facebook fan page just reached 1,000 likes. That's a huge milestone to us. We were hoping to get that before the start of the season, but we got it well before the start of the season. And when we were at 999, because we don't stock it very much, I put out there on my general account, Sonny at Raiders Fan Radio on Facebook. I said, hey, shout out on the show to the 1,000th like. And who was it, Murph? I believe the name was John Alfrey. So, John Alfrey, if you're listening, we appreciate you.
Thank you, John.
You were the 1,000th. How do you say that? Thousandths?
I don't. Thousandth.
Yeah, that's kind of
good. Thousandth. Yeah.
You were the person who came after 999 to like our Raiders Fan Radio page. We kind of neglected the page for a long time, but started recently kind of trying to ramp it up. So we appreciate everybody liking that and supporting that. And we released a video this week, and the video, it was cringeworthy, Murph. It was a little bit of what I wanted to make. I wanted to make it backwards motivational. What I meant was, instead of showing all the highlights and how great we are and getting people pumped up that way, I wanted to make the video remind us of that sickening feeling we had that Christmas Eve when Carr goes down and then the following weeks of getting pummeled, I mean pummeled and punked and beat up by the Broncos and then by the Texans, to get us motivated to really be amped up about this season, to finish what we started last year. Last year had all this momentum. People were talking about us playing against the Patriots in the Super Bowl and that we could actually beat the Patriots and get to the Super Bowl. And then the Carr thing happens, and we all know the rest of the story. Anyway, so we released a video called Raiders 2017 Unfinished Business. And to this, as of basically 24 hours later, it's close to 4,000 views. So we really appreciate you guys sharing that, viewing that. And this is what this season is all about to us in 2017. It's unfinished business. Murph, when you first saw the video, you wanted to puke too, didn't you?
Yeah, I my response to it was, "Hey, Sonny, you're kind of hurting feelings here," and I think that's the feeling, as you mentioned, that you were going for there, was that, yeah, you wanted to kind of bring that back around to remind us all of how bad that was, because there's been so many good things and so many positive things, and there's nothing wrong with focusing on the positive, and we like to think we do a decent job of just focusing on the silver linings or the silver and black linings, and not dwelling in the negative and the bad. But you also got to remember it, though. You know, it's like when I coach my youth football and baseball teams, I tell the kids all the time, I said, you know, it's okay to learn to accept losing. And sometimes learning to accept loss is just as important as learning to accept winning. But that doesn't mean you have to like it. And you always got to remember how that pit in your stomach, how that felt that day that you lost. And you got to think back to that. And the next time you want to give up on a rep, or the next time that you want to take a play off, or the next time you feel tired, the next time, just remember how that felt when you felt, when that loss happened. What was that feeling like? And that's, to me, what reminded me of watching that thing, is that it's been like freaking, puppy dogs and ice cream here in the off season, other than maybe the Penn story. We've just been talking about nothing but all these great things that have gone on in Raider Nation. But then all of a sudden I see a video like that and I'm like, oh man, it was kind of a drag, man, the way that the season ended. And yeah, we still got a ways to go. And, and I know that everybody was talking about us, contending with the Patriots and all that kind of. Let's not pretend like there wasn't some holes on this team still too at the end of last year. So there, while it sure would have been nice, and I think that we all wanted it, and I think that as, fans, we thought that we all had Raiders had a pretty good look at it with a healthy Derek Carr. But again, there were some question marks there too. So hopefully we've addressed those question marks, and hopefully this year, not only do we want the Patriots, but first and foremost, we want the Chiefs. And we want that dang division, and that's what they're talking about in Alameda or Napa, and that's what we should be talking about here as fans, is that let's get that dang division. Let's do this thing one thing at a time, one step at a time, and before we get to Tom Brady, we got to go through Alex Smith and whatever Harvard quarterback the Broncos have.
Anyway, we don't get too much in the weeds on on all that stuff.
Sorry. Yes, your video was great.
We appreciate the interactions. We appreciate everybody, friending us on Facebook, all that kind of stuff. And we appreciate the people calling in to the show. We have what we call the Sea of Fans mailbag. The Sea of Fans mailbag. We're going to jump into it right now. First things first, Murph, we got a voicemail this week from Chuck from the New Jersey chapter of the Blackhole.
Sonny, Murf, Raider Nation, what's happening? This is Chuck McCann from the official New Jersey chapter of the Blackhole. We're gearing up for an epic season of Raider football out here in Jersey. And to get things going, we're having a preseason kickoff party over Labor Day weekend. We're going to be at our home, the Irish Cottage Inn at 602 Route 23 in Franklin, New Jersey on Sunday, September 3rd. Party's all ages, family-friendly, gets going at 2 o'clock and lasts for as long as we're there. So if anybody's anywhere near North Jersey on the 3rd, you don't want to miss out. It's $25 in advance or $32 at the door if you want all-you-can-drink beer, wine, soft drinks, and that includes burgers and dogs. That'll last from 2 to 5. You don't need a ticket to come, though. If you want to just show up to the event, you can come hang out. There's multiple cash bars and an amazing full menu available. At 3 o'clock, we're taking the pirate ship back in time and watching Super Bowl 11, Raiders-Vikings. We got a large outdoor patio screen that everybody can cluster around. There's a tiki bar right there. It's going to be a blast. In addition to all that, we got games, prizes, and all Raider fans are welcome. Check out our Facebook page for details by searching for the Blackhole, New Jersey chapter in the Facebook search bar, or feel free to email me at cmccann13@gmail.com, CMCCANN, the number 13@gmail.com. And also check out our buddies, the Irish Cottage Inn, on their Facebook page as well. Cottage literally transforms itself into the black hole for every Raiders game, and the door is always open to the nation. Raider Nation for life. Thanks, guys.
That might be the most clean and crisp voicemail I've ever heard in my life. And if he
the guy does a pretty good job.
If he did that all in one take, that's impressive. That's impressive right there. Appreciate Chuck reaching out. And actually, we're going to have Chuck on the show next week to talk more about that event over Labor Day weekend, and then also about the club as a whole, what you can expect from them if you're living out in Jersey, and some of the stuff they're doing in the community. So, again, thanks, Chuck, for reaching out and calling the show. We're also doing a promotion right now through deadpiratesports.com. It's a call-in contest. So basically, you call in to the hotline, which is 909-345-3346. After 40 shows, Murph, I finally memorized the number. The number again is 909-345-3346. It goes straight to a voicemail, so you're not going to ever reach me or Murph. But you just call it up, leave the voicemail on there, and tell us about your fandom. And what we're going to do is after everybody calls in up until August 10th, so what we got, 4 or 5 more days left. What's today, the 5th? Up until August 10th, we're going to cut off the calls at that time. And then at random, we're just going to pick a call because they're all great, right? They're all been really good so far. We're just going to pick a call at random. And then the winner is going to get a $25 gift card to Dead Pirate Sports, as well as a gift bag of swag that's worth, I think, up to $100. So that's pretty cool, too. So, Murph, I think we have a sample voicemail we want to play for that, too, right?
Yeah, so here's an example of one of those great calls that we've gotten so far this week.
Sonny and Murf, what's good? This is Aaron, the Q-Dog Raider, holding it down in West Virginia. Unfortunately, I have to live out east. Used to live in Las Vegas, and I love to see the silver and black, you know what I'm saying, dawn, you know what I'm saying, the city that never sleeps, the city of sin. Always love Oakland. Once a Raider, always a Raider. But you know what? It's always about Western expansion. We got to move forward. The reason I'm a Raider fan, pure and simple. My brother is a lifelong Steelers fan, and I'm a lifelong Raider fan for the simple fact in 1972 in the AFC Playoff Championship, Franco Harris trapped that ball. Raider Nation was robbed. Referees took the easy way out. Raiders never do. We got robbed then. I take flights in now to Pittsburgh International. I have to look at a statue of that doggone trap. Franco Harris, immortalized, the greatest cheat that ever was. Raider Nation once, Raider Nation always. Live silver, love black. God bless. Raider Nation.
Love it. Love it. Thanks for the
Isn't that
voicemail.
great?
Thanks for the voicemail, Q-Dog. I love that he called Franco Harris the greatest cheat that ever was.
No, isn't that awesome? That's fantastic.
That's beautiful. That's
fantastic.
Beautiful. If we had to pick the calls based on preference, that would be hard. So we're just going to do it at random, right? There's no way.
Because we've gotten some amazing calls, some inspiring stories so far. We've gotten our first Raiderette calls. We've got our first female callers to the show. Like there's been some good ones. It's going to be, like you said, we couldn't just pick. So we'll keep it random, but keep them coming. Keep them coming. Cause even if obviously we're not gonna be able to select everybody. We only got one to pick from. But we'll play those calls on the show though. Next week, even the ones that aren't winners, we're going to play your calls because that's what it's all about. That's what we're all about, celebrating the fans here on Raiders Fan Radio, and the more interaction, the more we hear from you all, the better. So keep them coming, please.
And again, the number to call in is 909-345-3346. 909-345-3346. You have until 11:59 p.m. on August 10th to make the last phone call. And then after that, we'll do a random generator and pick the winners. Also, Murph, shout out to Rodney, or I'm sorry, not a shout out, props to Rodney Clausen, I believe is how you say his name, the owner of the pickle industry, and Nick Christopoulos, something like that. Rodney and Nick, they won the contest last week from Jeff Haskins at deadpiratesports.com. They won that contest of guessing the movie and then also guessing the touchdowns that Marshawn Lynch had in 2010. So again, props to Rodney and Nick for getting on the text there, getting hold of Jeff, and I think Rodney posted a picture, Murph, of his swag bag, and it looked pretty good. Looked like it was a lot of stuff, man.
It's legit. You got the $25 gift card to deadpiratesports.com plus like Raider stickers and a mug and Mardi Gras beads and dog tags and gosh, all kinds of stuff, man. There was all kinds of swag in there. Yeah, that was great opportunity to win a pretty cool prize pack from deadpiratesports.com. So keep those phone calls coming. And yeah, congratulations to Rodney and Nick for winning the 2 last week.
And again, we just appreciate everybody calling in, communicating. It's always fun. And that concludes the Sea of Fans mailbag. Murph, how can people find out about our show?
Hey, boys and girls, this is Uncle Mosh. That's right. Somebody actually claims Sonny and Murf. These two. Check them out on their website, RaidersFanRadio.com. You can friend them on Facebook at RaidersFanRadio, or you can like their fan page at Raiders Fan Radio Podcast. Hey, I don't tweet. I don't even know how to use a Twitter, but they do. You can tweet them at Raiders Fan Radio. Call them. Leave a voicemail if you want. Go old school. 909-345-3346. That's 909-345-3346. Hey, do this. Please subscribe and rate Raiders Fan Radio on iTunes. You can listen to the show on all podcast services like Stitcher, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, and many, many more. Okay, am I done? Did I say all the stuff I was supposed to say? All right, I'm out of here.
All right, this is a mammoth show. We got 7 topics to touch on. Right off the bat, we're going to talk about Sean Smith practicing with the 2s and a guy by the name of Breon Borders coming up practicing with the 1s. There was a great article written on RaiderRamble.com by Hisham Sobi that talks about Breon Borders. Topic number 2, Lee Smith taking a pay cut. We'll tie that in with the old Penn Gate. We'll give you some update about what's happening with Donald Penn's holdout. Topic number 3, we want to look at the defensive line and the news that's been coming out of training camp about the defensive line. We're talking about Eddie Vander Does. Irvin and Edwards are both back. Mack and Irvin, are they practicing some stunts on the same side? Get out of here. Calhoun's getting reps. Topic number 4, got some audio bites from Carr and Lynch crashing the NFL Network sets over there at practice at training camp. Topic number 5, Conley is finally cleared, Murph. I know it's a little bit old, but Conley is cleared. That's a huge, huge thing, and now we can move forward. Topic number 6, Jerry Jones, elected in the Hall of Fame last night, gave some nice words to John Madden, and we'll talk about that. Also, we'll touch on Plunkett and Tom Flores, and maybe why they're not in the Hall of Fame there, and also Amy Trask, should she be in the Hall of Fame? Finally, our last topic is Murph's black hole of the internet, which you don't want to miss because you never know what's going to happen in Murph's black hole of the internet. All right.
Always a surprise. Sometimes even to me.
So always a dark surprise, dark mystery down there. All right. So right after the break, we'll come back and talk about Sean Smith with the 2s and Breon Borders with the 1s.
Raiders fans, you want to be a Raiders fan? You know somebody that wants to be a Raiders fan? Let me tell you, the first thing you need to do is get some Raiders swag. You can get your Raiders swag from Raider Jeff. He owns DeadPiratesSports.com, and right now he's having a monster of an event. You buy a jersey, you get a free 3x5 flag. You get them both for $49.50. You got all your current favorite players in authentic Nike jerseys. We're talking about people like Khalil Mack, Derek Carr, Marshawn Lynch, Amari Cooper, Sebastian Janikowski, Michael Crabtree, Bruce Irvin, and even that little favorite of ours, the punter, Marquette King. They even have legends. They got Howie Long and Charles Woodson. You can get them, and you get your choice when you order of one of 5 Raider flags, including Raider Nation and the One Nation American flag. Check out DeadPiratesSports.com. Woo!
Sean Smith, me and Murph's personal favorite on the Raiders defense, got, I don't want to say demoted, but he's playing with the twos at training camp right now. Now, if you don't look at that as a demotion, then you don't understand what a demotion is, I guess. He's not playing with the ones no more. He's playing with the twos, right? When camp first started, we heard about him getting beat by Cooper, and the thought was, well, of course Cooper should beat Smith, right? So you weren't really, like, giving that a lot of clout. But then as camp went on, you just kept hearing about Sean Smith having a bad camp. And then you started hearing about the rise of this undrafted free agent named Breon Borders. And again, Hisham Sobi at RaiderRamble.com wrote an article called Undrafted Cornerback Breon Borders Generating Buzz at Raiders Camp. And he talked about how this guy was a 3-year starter at Duke. Very productive. 34 passes defended, ACC single-season record. 12 interceptions. And in 2016, he only allowed a 38.3% completion percentage when guys were throwing at him. So all the talk has been about Breon Borders coming up and Sean Smith coming down. The unfortunate thing, Murph, is we still owe Sean Smith, I think it's a little over $9 million. So we can't really cut him. If we would have, I think, cut or traded him before April, that might have been a different story. But now that April has passed, then it's kind of, now we're stuck. So what do we do with Sean Smith? And then also, Murph, I guess my question is Breon Borders, is he just the camp darling and then he'll fade away? Or do you think this guy has a legit chance of not only making the team, but maybe coming in and playing that 5th spot or something like that?
Well, you never know. Anything's possible, right? And yeah, I think he's definitely the camp darling. I think that's the for sure thing that we know at this point is that's it. If there's any conclusion to be made after 7 days of training camp is that he's the camp darling. So is he filling a role until Gary and Conley comes back? Is this truly a demotion of Sean Smith? I mean, as soon as the Raiders pulled the trigger on Gary and Conley in the first round, you knew that something was going to happen with Sean Smith. And that was one of my big complaints about our picking him in the first round was that either you were drafting Conley to be your second starter along with Emerson, or you're and dropping Sean Smith down to pay him all that money to be a slot corner, or you're drafting in the first round your third cornerback. So either way, that was one of the big reasons that I didn't understand what Reggie was doing. And it's starting to come together a little bit better now that Conley has been cleared, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But as far as it relates to Sean Smith and Breon Borders directly, I think it's maybe a little bit more of a placeholder, plus the idea that he's coming up. And they also had Travis Jonathan Carey playing in that running with the ones, playing opposite of Emerson as well. So I think this, if anything, and again, it's so early, it's hard for us to tell, but if anything, this is just more of that hybrid that we're going to see defensively from the Raiders. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum, and we're going to continue to talk about it until we see it week 1 in Tennessee, that there's going to be a big mix and match of personnel in this defense. And I think that Sean Smith moving around and playing underneath with somebody like, Melifonwu playing over the top, bracketing tight ends or even slots, I guess, to a certain degree, but mainly the tight end, right? That's what I would think, or running backs coming out of the backfield. I'm thinking Jamal Charles like that. That's really what these guys are going to do, right? Like that to me would make sense. And here we're starting to see that footprint finally start to develop. Of course, the best guy to ask in the world on this stuff, at least in our sphere of influence, is Ted Wynn. We're going to have him on the show here in a couple weeks, and we'll ask him about it. But that's what I think is going on. I think this is less of an indictment on Sean Smith directly, although I know that you've never been pleased with what you've seen out of him as a fan. But I think it's less of a consequence of his play and more of a consequence of just the different personnel packages that the Raiders are going to have to take advantage of going into this year.
So as of right now, Travis Joey Carey is listed as the starting nickelback. Sean Smith is listed as the right starting cornerback, and I believe David Emerson is the starting left cornerback. With Breon Borders coming up and playing with the ones, does that mean he's the fourth Does that mean he's the fourth, or does that mean he overtakes Travis Jake Carey in that nickel spot, and then Breon Borders takes the nickel back, or does Conley come up and play the nickel back now? Because Conley, even though he was cleared, at first he had shin splints, and then now he's, I don't know if it's still the shin splints or if it's something deeper happening with him, right? But now it seems like we have a whole plethora of cornerbacks, and how are we going to use them, right? What are we going to do here? What I liked hearing, I think it was so we're recording on Sunday. I think it was Saturday's camp or Friday's camp, was that Sean Smith was covering the tight ends, and you mentioned it earlier. I love that idea. I love because if he's big but he's not as fast, he's a perfect matchup for the tight ends, right? So you put him maybe underneath in those shallow zones, 5 to 10 yards, and then you have Obi taking over the top, basically just bracketing the tight end. That's a pretty good stop if you ask me, right? You got Sean Smith following whoever, say it's Travis Kelce, whatever side he lines up on, Smith's right over the top of him, and then Obi the same. You just flip-flop him and Joseph back there deep, and then you get the tight end covered no matter what. But I think a lot of that is going to depend on can our starting 1 and 2 cornerback be isolated and lock down those outside receivers, and that's the big question mark I think at this point. Does Sean Smith have the number 2 starting job still? I believe so. Breon Borders, the knock against him, and again it's mentioned in the Raider Ramble article, is that he's not really fast. He doesn't have elite speed, right? And this was a deep cornerback draft, but he's not fast, so his man coverage is a little bit lacking, and he can get burnt on occasion. So that could be his downfall. So maybe he won't be our man-to-man, shut down kind of guy. Maybe he's out there when we're doing cover 4 and playing quarters, which the Raiders did a lot last year. So who knows? I think there's still a lot of questions in the air about, what's going to happen. It's exciting. I like seeing that Sean Smith gets demoted because, look, dude, you have a name for yourself and you have a lot of money, but you didn't really play well last year. Yes, the Raiders were huge in takeaways. The first 6 weeks of the season, they set records for being one of the worst defenses in the league. The later 10 games of the season, they did a little better. I think they were top middle of the league. I don't think they were top 5 or top 10 like some people say. But there's still just a lot of question marks about this defense. But I love seeing an undrafted free agent like Breon Borders come up and shake up camp. And it was cool because Derek Carr had his press conference a couple days ago, and he had talked about it in his press conference. He said, guys make a name for themselves by making plays. When you're watching film, you keep saying, man, who's that 31? Who's 31? Who's 31 out there making plays? And eventually you recognize his name. So you notice him first by his number and him making plays, and then you know his name. I think that's pretty cool that he's an underdog and he's fighting his way through. But the real question is, Murph, what do we do with all these cornerbacks?
Well, I'm curious if you were even going to have, you're going to have a starter on paper, and obviously right now it's Travis Jerry Carey to go along with Emerson. But as we go through the course of a game, I think it's going to depend strictly on what kind of personnel packages you're seeing out of the offense. Week 1 in Tennessee, they're going to see Delanie Walker, who is one of the best tight ends as far as playmakers go in the league, right? He's up there with Kelce. He's up there with Gronk. He's up there. He's what, top 5, I would say, as far as elite playmakers. Think about that game.
He's getting older, though, but he's still up there. I would agree.
Yeah, but so is Antonio Gates. It doesn't stop him from catching touchdown passes. Sure. You know what I mean? And you think about, 2 years ago when we were in Tennessee and saw them play the Titans, Delanie Walker was the only playmaker on the field offensively. Yeah. He was explosive, and so they're going to get a big dose of him right away. Week 1. Now, the Titans have added a lot of other pieces as well as far as wide receivers go. They've added Eric Decker. They added Corey Davis. They added Taywan Taylor, I think is his name, the other kid they drafted early this year. So, there's a lot of offensive weapons on the field now for Mariota that weren't there 2 years ago. Heck, that weren't even there last year. So, Delanie Walker's not going to be the focal point of the offense, but he's still there and he's still going to be able to make plays. So, not to mention that DeMarco Murray's a great pass catcher out of the backfield, right? And even Derrick Henry's not bad either. So, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for these guys underneath to be playing a lot of coverage. And I think that for the faster guys, if you got a fast slot, so if you got Decker running out of the slot, I don't think you want Sean Smith in that matchup. you want Travis James Carey, right? That's the guy that you
or
want
Conley,
to cover that.
Depending on where he comes up.
Or Conley, right? But it's a rotating of those three. Whereas if that's Delaney Walker, then sure, then you want Sean Smith and then Obi coming in or whatever. So I think it's all strictly going to depend on the matchups that they see. And frankly, with the teams that they play this year, with the Patriots on the schedule, with the Titans, with the Broncos twice, or with the Chiefs twice, you look at the tight ends in the league, man, that they're going to have to go up against. They're pretty stout. So, they're going to get lots and lots of opportunities to see multiple packages in the course of a game.
Do you think this could happen? Emerson's at the 1. Conley's at the 2, Travis Julius Carey's at the 3 on nickelback, and then Obi comes down to cover the tight end, and Smith goes back and plays the safety? Or do you think they're not going to do that?
Well, it's funny that you said that because I mentioned that once upon a time. I think it was Scott Winter that was on the show with us, and in fact, yes, it was. It was draft night, and I'm having my moment because we drafted a cornerback.
That's when he talked you off the ledge, right?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I said was, well, is there a world where we move Sean Smith to safety, being that we kind of have a need there for? Now, this was long before Obi even, because this was just the first round pick. And I said, now we have a needed safety. And he said, that's an awful lot of money to play a safety. And I think that his point still holds true. But could he be some type of hybrid? That's what Travis Justin Carey does, right? We've seen him play safety and corner. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. Here's what we do know. The Raiders have tons of options in the secondary, which is exactly what you need when you're playing the likes of, Tyreek Hill and Julian Edelman and all the, you think about the receivers are going to go up again, along with all the tight ends I just mentioned, the passing attacks that they're going to have to face to, march towards a division title. It's a pretty tall order. So, I think that having all these options is exactly what Reggie's plan was. And, we'll see what guys like Ken Norton and Coach Woodson and all of them can do with it, because they're certainly going to have the, the personnel in play to be able to handle these matchups that they're going to see.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens this week against Arizona. The preseason's fun, but it's so vanilla. You don't see what teams are really going to do. Yeah. And so, yes, I'm excited that football's back. The Hall of Fame game, I didn't watch it. I watched the highlights at the end of it. So it's exciting that it's back. I'm excited to see the Raiders on the field again, especially after what happened last year. So that's all cool. But come week 1, that Titans game, it's going to be interesting to see who the starting 2 cornerbacks are. Will it be David Emerson? Will Garyon Conley have a spot? Will Sean Smith be there? Will Travis Jonas Carey be there? Will it maybe be Breon Borders? We don't really know, and I don't think we're going to know until week 1 comes. So it's a long ways away, but I love that we have options. I love that Smith is being held accountable, and I like that the Raiders are giving guys like Breon Borders an opportunity to thrive.
Hey, just one time, I need it.
Raiders Fan Radio.
Murph, you have 2 things happening at camp this year. On one side of the offensive line, you have a guy willing to take a pay cut to make it work with the team because he values the relationships on the team. That was his quote. And I'm talking about Lee Smith. Lee Smith was slotted to make $2.75 million this year as his base salary. Instead, he opted to have a $1 million base salary and then have a $1 million roster bonus on top of it. So some places you read he took a $1.75 million pay cut. Now, really, he just took a $750,000 pay cut because he's going to make the roster. Regardless, he took a pay cut to make the team work because he valued the relationships on the team. At the same time, you have another guy named Donald Penn who's holding out, who's not budging. According to Michael Silver, our good friend, Donald Penn is dug in his stance at wanting more money. In fact, according to Mike Silver, Donald Penn expressed a desire for a new deal 1 year ago and again at the Combine. We were always led to believe this was something out of the blue, that it was when Carr got his contract, that's when Penn's agent contacted the Raiders. Now, if this is something that's been over a year old, well, that's kind of news to everybody, and this is, again, according to Mike Silver. So, what is true, what's not true, I don't really know at this point. I don't know how long this has been going on for. But the longer it goes on, the more mad I get. Now, on one hand, I get all conspiracy theory with it. I'm like, okay, maybe Donald Penn's 34 years old. Maybe he doesn't want to go out in the hot sun and practice. Maybe he struck a deal with Reggie to say, hey, look, man, I don't want to be at practice. I'll make it about money, and you just let me, have it off. Don't find me. I'll be back. I'll be doing my workouts on my own. Maybe there's some backroom deal that went on, and on the outside, it's looking like this. But I don't really think that's true. I think that's just pie in the sky kind of thought. I think Penn wants more money. But the problem is, I don't see Reggie McKenzie budging at all, Murph. In fact, his quotes this week, Reggie McKenzie's quotes were like this. He did state Donald Penn. He goes, he's my guy, referring to Donald Penn. Then Reggie said he has a deal, which meant that, look, he has a deal, get into camp. And then Reggie McKenzie, as if he needed to clarify it even more, he stated the following. I want him at camp. We don't talk contract unless a guy is here. We'll wait. That's pretty firm. If my boss told me that, I don't think I'm getting paid. And on top of that, I'm going to get my ass into work. So what do you think happens here? This is kind of getting to be a big deal, right? We're 6 days away from the first preseason game. I don't care how great a shape you're in, how long you've played. You just had 8 months off. You need time to build that chemistry again. You need just to touch bases to freshen up, right? You need that prep time. When you do anything in life, you need prep time. I'm worried he's not there. I'm worried that he's not taking snaps with the team. I'm worried that Lynch isn't running behind him to know his tendencies. I'm starting to get a little frustrated with the whole deal, and I'm kind of wondering how it's going to end. If they're both dug in, I don't see McKenzie giving in, simply because that's not a precedent you want to set for your team. You don't want to have the rest of the players looking on and going, hey, Donald Penn held out and he got more money. How come I want to get paid? That's not a good look to present. At the same time, this Raiders offense without Donald Penn is not as good. And that's just a statement right there, right? There's nothing you could say that would convince me it's going to be as good, if not better, without Donald Penn. So I'm starting to get concerned, Murph. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's concerning. I think the timing and the selfishness of it is the most concerning of it. I think there are other ways to get this accomplished, and that is by getting into camp. And especially now that the message has been floated out there by Reggie, the ball is in Penn's court. And, Lee Smith reworked a favorable contract. Derek Carr, worked out, his contract to very favorable results for himself. And I think that Reggie is not opposed to working out contracts this time of year. But yeah, if you're not there, I see his point, and absolutely you're right on the precedent. You don't want to, Reggie McKenzie is going to be the GM of this football team a heck of a lot longer than Donald Penn is going to be its left tackle. And Reggie McKenzie has, if anything, has proven that he's managed this team and its personnel with a big picture focus. And he's willing to take a hit on the short term in order to benefit the team on the long term. You look at the first really year and a half of this football team, 2 years of this football team, golly, man, we were eating some crap. I mean, it was rough, right? But it's all that crap that we ate is all facilitated where the Raiders have gotten to now at this point. They're healthy, and because they're healthy, and I mean from a cap and from a management perspective, they're healthy, so they're able to accommodate a big giant contract for Derek Carr and Gabe Jackson, and bringing in free agents like Bruce Irvin and Kalichi Osemele, and a big contract on the horizon for Khalil Mack and soon to be Amari Cooper, yada, 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 on down the line. If they did a bunch of stupid stuff, like give guys reworked contracts that aren't in camp, then guess what? You're not set up for success to be able to sign guys further down the line. Now, I don't think the kind of money that Penn's going to need to get him, quote, happy is going to be the kind of money that's going to be of any, consequence to inhibit somebody like Cooper down the line. But again, like you said, it's that precedent. You don't want to set that now. There's a big picture to be played. And frankly, it's in Penn's camp now. And I think that if this goes on for too terribly long, like it's starting to get to a critical point, but I think he's still probably got another week or so. That third preseason game is the big one, right? That's the one everybody says. That's the, if he's in camp a solid week leading up to that or week and a half leading up to that, I think we're fine. And, when you're talking about a 34-year-old vet, it's just a matter of getting in shape. And like you said, gelling, it's not a matter of learning playbooks or anything like that. So I think they're going to be fine. But it will start. I don't want to say it's going to get ugly because the Raiders are going to move on with or without this guy. I'm pretty confident of that. But it will be ugly for him. And I would hate to see that happen for him. I would hate to see there be any animosity from his line mates when, look, an offensive line, if anything, needs to operate as one solid unit. And if you got animosity built up there and the lack of opportunity to gel with your teammates or whatever that may be, then they're going to suffer. And they suffer, then Marshawn Lynch and Derek Carr suffer, and the whole team suffers. So, I think it's important for him to get in, and I think he will. I don't think this thing is going to get – this is not a Josh Norman type situation. This is not somebody that's disgruntled with the front office or, hasn't ever gotten paid. He's not working like – this isn't generational money he's looking at here. He's just looking at I'm top 10 production. I want to get paid.
What about what Silver says about this has been going on for a year? That's new. That's new. We don't. If
Silver,
that's true,
if any. I think that's crap. Silver, if anything, has proven to us that he's inaccurate at best in his reporting, and all we got to do is revert back and look at all the stories that he put out there about how, quote, frustrated Derek Carr was with his negotiating of his contract. Okay, so did any of that at all come to fruition or prove to be true? No. It was all completely false reporting, and I think this is once again false report. I don't know if this guy does this stuff to try to just stir up Raider Nation or he's got a case of the ass for the team or I'm not sure what it is, but whatever it is, he's always swimming upstream on his stories. Like they're never congruent with everything else that's going on based on people like, Vic Tafer, the boots on the ground that are at training camp, those folks and their reporting or just what we can see and absorb as fans. There are some things like Derek Carr and his morality and his overall character as a human being, by looking at that guy and listening to that guy, he's not the kind of guy that's going to be lashing out going, oh, I'm so frustrated with this process. No, that's not what he does. So for somebody to report that, it's false. And so for all that we know and everything that we've heard is that this thing came up when Carr signed his contract. Donald Penn was on Total Access and all the other shows this year,
right? 2-3 months ago.
2-3 months talking about none of this came up.
I want to win a Super Bowl. I'm just here to win a Super Bowl.
Yes.
I want to win. I don't care about the money. And next thing you know, he wants money.
So this is not something that has been going on that long, Mike. I don't buy it. And frankly, I think that he's just frankly getting irresponsible in his reporting. It's one thing to kind of be askew.
Let's bring it back to Penn, though. Let's bring it back to Penn. So you don't believe Penn's been doing this for a year. You don't believe this has been going on for a year.
No, I don't think he's been doing it for a year. And I think that he'll be in camp before the end of next week.
So you think it's over next week?
I think it's going to get over soon because look, the guy at a certain point, you just got to get into camp, right? If Reggie's drawn the line and put the ball in his court, now it's on him to act. Otherwise, the Raiders are going to go forth and they're going to prosper. Now, listen, we've got a couple stopgap options. You got Marshall Newhouse is currently playing the left tackle spot, and then David Sharp is playing over on the right. Now, David Sharp is a left tackle by trade.
Alexander, right? You got him too.
Him and Alexander, yes. But Sharp is the one that by trade is a left tackle, but the Raiders drafted him actually to play right tackle. And it's up to Mike Tice, the best offensive line coach in the league. He's going to work with sharp on becoming a good right tackle, because there's some timing things, there's some footwork things. It's different. It's learning a new position. It's not, you can't just flip it and go one side to the other and just fit right in. There's a learning curve there. And so Tice, they drafted him and gave him to Tice with the idea of, we'll work him into becoming a right tackle. Well, now with him and Newhouse, now is he going to be either forced into playing more right tackle, or is he going to assume back to his natural position and playing more left tackle? I don't know, but the Raiders have options, and then you just mentioned Alexander. So it's not like we don't have enough guys. I mean, they got enough to go out there and play a football game, we'll see to what level of success. But, I think it's definitely up to Penn now. Get into camp, renegotiate this thing. The Raiders got the room. There's a way to do this without setting the bad precedent for the team and still accommodate the big man. And then, you get your couple of weeks off of camp, so you don't have to do, run so many, suicide sprints, and we'll call it a day and let's go win a championship, Don.
I like Alexander. There was a report by Kyle Martin on Raiders.com kind of highlighting Vidal Alexander. It's year 2, so, he's stepping up. He's going against Khalil Mack every day in practice, which if you can block Khalil, you can block anybody in the league, including Von Miller. So, I like his attitude. He states this, like guys have said in the past, success is a daily job and rent is due every day. I need to earn this job every day in practice, every rep I take in practice, so I don't take it for granted, and I'm very appreciative. So if we can have him on lockdown at right tackle, that leaves room for Sharp or for Newhouse on the left tackle. And, at this point, buy Penn. I think it's going to suck, but I stand with Reggie on this, dude. You have to be about the team. It can't be about one player. It has to be about the team. And so,
yeah, and he's 34. So, I mean, how much longer is the guy going to play anyways, right? It's not like he's going to be around for another 8 years or something. And it's like he's going to be around for a couple.
With all the hype about the Raiders right now, with the possibilities that are there, it's like you're if this is legit, if what he says is legit, if what Silver says is legit, who knows, right? He's potentially walking away from a Super Bowl caliber team. Don't tell me it's all about winning 2 months ago and then 2 months later you're going to step away from a Super Bowl caliber team. That's ridiculous, So I'm pissed at Penn for this. It's an unnecessary disruption for the team. Injuries are going to happen. Things happen. But for you to purposely do this, to purposely take away from the chemistry, I don't like it at all. And the players will all say, he's getting his money, good for him, do what you got to do. It's a topic of conversation, and it's a distraction for those guys to look over, for Kenichi similarly there, to look over and say, their Penn's not there. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And it's pretty annoying, and I'm interested to see how it plays out. I'd be shocked if McKenzie gave in. Without seeing Penn at camp first, or even if Penn comes back and McKenzie still gives in, But all that said, Lee Smith, veteran, hurt last year, comes in, wants to play on the team, isn't really, talked about in regards to being a star, but he is your stud blocker, and he is sneaky when it comes to getting out for pass catching. He takes a pay cut. That's what you want. You want that mentality versus the Penn mentality. So I'm annoyed with it. And I hope it gets resolved pretty quickly.
Sitting there in your kimono, looking at your baby in her caftan. You're listening to Raiders Fan Radio. That's right. 2 bald-headed idiots talking to you guys. Keeping their foreheads slick and sexy. That's by Raiders fans, for Raiders fans, the only fans that matter.
For the record, I just got this visual of Uncle Mark saying that in the mic. For the record, I shaved my head with a 1/16 inch razor. Thank you very much.
Keeping it slick and sexy.
That's good. That's what you were talking about?
Yeah.
That's good.
Two bald-headed idiots.
Two bald-headed idiots coming right at you. No more outsiders than us. We're coming out the side gate, not through the front gate. Anyway, let's jump the what they call it, the trenches. Let's jump the trenches. Defensive side of the ball. Murph, we're hearing great things coming out of training camp about the defensive line, right? Starting off with Eddie Vander. Does he have it? Yes, he does, according to the reports coming out of training camp this week. Scott Bear of somewhere down there, he states, Eddie Vanderdoes gets a sack of Carr from the interior. Rookie has had a good day. Paul Gutierrez, defensive turned it up with consecutive sacks of Derek Carr by Bruce Irvin and Eddie Vanderdoes. Those are on two different days, Murph. So Eddie sacking Carr 2 days in a row. He's showing up to camp, and I think it was a question mark because it was which Eddie are we going to get, right? He had a great year in UCLA, and then got hurt, and then he's kind of has a history of doing great and then not doing great, right? And is it an effort issue or a talent issue? People decided it was an effort issue. So far, Eddie is killing it, right? 6'3", 305 pounds. That's beast. And all reports show our third-round pick is killing it. Murph, is that exciting or what?
Yeah, it's very exciting, and I think that it shows that you just can't evaluate a player that's playing through injuries or recovering from an injury. And when you tear an ACL like he did, you can come back in that first year, but it's really the second year before you return to any kind of prior form. And, unless you're somebody like Adrian Peterson, who is like the absolute anomaly, for the most part, when you're talking about players that return from these severe knee injuries and these surgeries, it takes like 18 months to recover. So it's your second year before you finally start returning to any kind of form. And yeah, the big knock on Eddie Vanderdoes was that it was an effort thing, that he was slow getting off the ball and all this kind of stuff. But, and then he was overweight. But, dude, I've never played in the NFL, but I've had injuries before. And look, when you're injured, and it's frustrating because you can't work out the way you want to work out. You can't, you know what I mean? Like you just feel sluggish. You have the mental hurdle to get over before you can finally, feel comfortable planting on things. And, it takes time, man. And so I think that, yeah, this is very encouraging. And I think this is another shot at Reggie to cement his, legacy that is currently forming in the league and with these Oakland Raiders, man, that he's, got an eye for this stuff. And, look, it's a week into training camp. Who knows? But here's the good news is that when we had Dan Williams on the line and we first brought him in, the whole idea for him, right, was to suck up blocks and move the pocket, right? It wasn't, a lot of times with these interior linemen, you're not looking for them to go out and get a bunch of sacks. You're not looking for you think of when Albert Haynesworth was playing really well or, Gilbert Brown or any of these big fat guys that have played in there in the middle, right? Their job is not to go out and get sacks. Their job is to go out there and suck up blockers and push that pocket back in order to free up your edge rushers, right? To get them loose to get into the backfield. And so the fact that Eddie's getting pressure and getting to Derek Carr is fabulous news. But the best news is that he's just moving the pocket. He's just collapsing the pocket down. We got pass rushers. We don't need our interior linemen to get sacks. We got Bruce Irvin, Khalil Mack for that. Maybe even Calhoun we're hearing is lining up, out there. Mario won't play on the very far outside, but you know what I'm saying. We got plenty of guys to rush the quarterback from the edge, and if Eddie can get in there and push that pocket back, that's all the Raiders need from him, and that's something we didn't get from Dan Williams here lately. And I'm excited at that prospect. And if this guy ends up being, more athletic than even that, then that's just all gravy.
Vic Tafer, old-time friend of the show, way back in the day on Sports Dagos, wrote an article for the San Francisco talking about Edwards coming back and also Irvin coming back. But the biggest mystery was Edwards' neck injury. And it looks like he went through the team's first full practice at training camp and said it felt great. And that's got to be exciting, right? Edwards has been one of those guys, what is it now, year 3 for him?
Yeah.
For the last 2 years, we've been hoping he's going to be the other side, right, of the Mac attack, right? That he was going to be there helping Mac get sacks, sometimes playing on the same side as Mac, but it just never came to fruition. But now with him healthy, I'm excited. And hopefully it's not going to take 2 years, right? So, time will tell, but that's got to be exciting, huh, Marv?
Yeah, I and he can also kick inside too, right? Like, Edwards is big enough to play in there. He's I was trying to see if I could find his yeah, here he is. He's he's 6'3", 280. So I mean, he's big enough still to play in the interior as well. And you think about it, in a defensive end in a 3-4 scheme, right? He's inside anyways. And so whatever it is, I mean, yes. And here's the cool thing about this guy too. Mario Edwards is 23 years old. He's 23. Like he's so young still. So he's got a long career ahead of him. And I think the first part of his career obviously was frustrated by the injuries, but this is a player that has been kind of laying in waiting, right? Like this is the guy, and as fans, we've been kind of waiting to see him get geared up and go. And man, you look at the different pieces that we have on the defensive line, it's got to be encouraging. And much like I mentioned in the secondary, the different mixing and matching that we're going to have opportunities to do. I think we're going to see that on defense in the front seven as well. We've already heard from Ted Wynn. He sent us some pictures, or not sent us, but sent out pictures on Twitter of training camp, and he was saying there was some stunts getting ran there where both Mack and Irvin were blitzing from the same side of the line. Man, that's encouraging. And Calhoun getting a lot of activity during the absence of Edwards and Irvin. It was Calhoun was getting in the mix, and he's bulked up a little bit. I believe Calhoun is up to like 258, at 6'4". So, I mean, you're talking about, dude, and I've referenced this interview 100 times here lately, and I'm going to keep doing it till we talk to the guy, but he's one of the best young minds in football when it comes to X's and O's, and he's at training camp, and I'm talking about Ted Wynn. He's there with Vic, and he's there with all those guys and seeing this stuff firsthand, and I'm really curious to hear what he's got to say about the hybrid nature of the Raiders front seven along with their secondary and the things that they're going to be doing, because I mean, I got the feeling that when we go to Tennessee and we see the Raiders play week 1, I can't wait to watch the sideline. And more so than I've ever even thought of that before as a fan and going to a game in person, I can't wait to watch these guys run in and out of the huddle to see what kind of personnel changes that they're going to make and how dang confusing that's going to be for a young quarterback like Mariota. Like, I mean, because you're just going to see constant craziness and change in personnel, don't you think?
You get me excited. I have to think so. I don't think we're ever going to know the scheme. Like, I don't think Ted Wynn or any reporter who's there or even the coaches, I don't think they'll ever talk scheme. But you pick up on what you hear and read and what you don't hear. So, for instance, I'll give you two tells in my eyes. You have the picture of Mack and Irvin stunting on the same side. Typically, they approach from the opposite side, right? You have them stunting on the same side, which is going to cause all sorts of confusion.
Explain a stunt. Tell us what a stunt is.
Stunt is where you have guys lined up. Say if you're on the offensive line, Irvin's on the inside, Mack's on the outside. Well, instead of Mack coming on the outside, Irvin will go on the outside, and Mack will come around Irvin and go on the inside where Irvin basically was. So it's basically a crisscross. So you have that going on, but then also you look at that last quote in there on Vic's article of what Edwards said. He said this: I'm playing a lot of positions, more than I'm used to. I'm playing up and down with my hand in the dirt. He goes, it's good. It's really good. So he's listed as the right defensive end. But as you said, he's big enough to go over and play defensive tackle. He can rush from the ground. He can rush from the top. So you got Mack and Irvin on one side. You put Andy Vanderdoes in the middle. You put Edwards on the other side, maybe with Calhoun or Ward or Latham or whoever. This could get fun. I agree. I'm excited to see what's going to happen with the new coordinator, right? With hopefully a new scheme, come with a big nickel. Then you send in Obi on a blitz or something like that. I mean, and then you got Carl Joseph. Like, it's exciting. We wrote an article earlier this week about the 9 question marks that still remain. But there are some questions still. But, man, there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope that this defense could be really, really fun because we have good playmakers there. But there's a potential, Murph, if you think about this concept, there could be 4 rookies starting on this defense, right? You got Vanderdoes, Markel Lee, middle linebacker. You could have Conley, and then you could have Obi. That could be 4 rookies starting on a defense, which isn't ideal, but if they can play, and if we're versatile enough, they don't have to be the every down kind of player, that could be something special. And they're young enough. Mac's still young. Irvin's kind of getting up there a little bit. Anderson's a little bit older as well, but this team could gel, and this could be a good defense for 3-4 years to come.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't know how likely it is that we're going to see all 4 of those guys start, but I'll bet you we see all 4 of those guys within the first series or 2. There's no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
I think that, like I said, there's going to be a lot. When you think about safety, I mean, it's got to be Joseph and Reggie, right? Nelson on play 1 of week 1. I would think, but you're right. Obi's not far down the depth chart, and again, I think we're just going to see just a lot of craziness as far as matchups go. A lot of guys on and off the field, so we'll see. It'll be fun, man. I'm even looking forward to warm-ups week 1, man. Getting to the game early enough and just seeing who's warming up and when, and you know what I mean? Like, there's that really cool spot in the end zone where we can get down there real close to the field and we can watch these guys, where we got autographs from the players a couple of years ago when we met Marcel Reese and all that. So I'm looking forward to getting down there and watching these guys, man. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be very, very cool.
You love watching those big players work out, don't you?
Oh, you know it.
You're listening to Raiders Fan Radio with Sonny and Murf, a podcast by Raiders fans for Raiders fans.
Often they say as a parent, you live vicariously through your kids. Well, my kids are still pretty young. I don't really want to be all about dripping popsicles on my stomach in the summertime. I'm over that. But
you get enough of that on your own instead of doing it.
I do that on my own with Mountain Dew and freaking hot Cheetos. I'm more interested in living vicariously through Derek Carr. That guy has the life, right? I mean, he has the life, right? He's likable, good looking, eyelashes to kill for, solid quarterback. But Murph, did you see him this week at practice on the NFL Network set? His brother, David Carr, was there, and then his other brother, Darren Carr's there. It was family and friends day at practice, and so he's just there with all of his family, all of his friends, doing what he's always done since he's, 10 years old, basically, just having the time of his life. Like that's the story you want to live, right, as a quarterback, And I think we have some audio hits from both Derek Carr and from Marshawn Lynch crashing NFL Network sites earlier this week.
Everybody was sort of mesmerized by this, including a special guest.
Yeah, go ahead, dude.
Just popped into
just take over the show. It's your
segment
training camp.
here.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, what's up, Derek Carr?
Good to see you guys.
You're really derailing everything right now.
You're really just you're taking off
all the brotherly
thanks,
love.
Man.
Look at this.
Look it out.
By the way, everybody, it's Family Day at Raiders
Family
Camp.
Day.
Oh,
You
man.
can't forget that. Hug your family. Tell them you love them.
And wait a minute,
Yes.
I discovered that you guys have matching tattoos. Can you
we
show
do have matching tattoos.
everyone? It's
Check
adorable.
it out. Thank you.
Did you guys
They're
get them
crazy.
together?
No, we didn't because he was like 12 years old when I got mine. So it would have been weird.
That would be kind of
My
weird.
mom would have been very upset.
And then he took me to get mine.
I did do that though. Sorry, Mom. Sorry,
Did you hold
Cheryl.
his hand? Did you hold the other hand while he got it?
No, I didn't have to.
You didn't sign the Guardian paper like.
No, it wasn't
like
that
it's
early.
Guardian.
No, it
Okay.
wasn't like
Okay, I'm
15.
just
No,
making sure,
it was
man.
later, but no, we didn't have to do that.
Have fun.
Thanks, man.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, come back over and hang out.
It's my job.
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
gonna walk.
like, you
I'm
have
gonna
some
walk
work
into
to
your
do.
huddle later.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna do some things. All right, let's see how that goes.
Thank you. Man.
I've been called David plenty of times.
No, I know. It goes both ways,
pretty
dude.
much the same.
It goes both ways.
Bye, America.
Good
All
to see you,
right.
buddy. I'll see you later.
Derek Carr just jumping in.
I love it, Murph. I love it, right? It's like, doesn't it seem just fun, laid back, right? Hey, hug your family, tell them you love them, matching tattoos, and then he goes right back. Like for Derek to have his brother as an analyst for NFL Network, that's gotta be fun, right? It's gotta just be, that's the life, I mean, would you rather be him or Jay Cutler being made fun of, having memes galore after you, everybody talking about your weight, and then signing a contract to play for the Dolphins? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, Jay Cutler burning heaters on the sideline, man. Absolutely, gotta love it. Yeah, man. Yeah, Derek Carr's got the life, man. I mean, it's it's just cool seeing the brotherly love. You know what I mean? He's hugging his brother. They're talking about their matching tattoos. You just feel not to get too cheesy about it here, but you feel there's love, obviously love in the air, brotherly love there, but just a lighthearted, positive. that doesn't seem like a guy that's too worried about his left tackle holding out of camp. You know what I'm saying? Like there's not a brooding nature or it's something that I say often in my work life is that I take what I do seriously, but I don't take myself too seriously. And I feel like that's kind of like what we're seeing with this crop of Raiders is that they take what they're doing seriously. They're not goofing around when it comes to performing on the field. But when it comes to what they represent and who they are as men and as players and they're lighthearted and fun. They're not taking themselves too seriously. They're having a good time with it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that that's very much in line with not only the legacy of the Raiders, but a legacy of championship teams. And so not only did Carr crash the set on Michael Robinson and his brother David and I always forget what that lady's name is. That's the host of that little segment there. But he crashed those three. But then Michael Robinson was the victim of a crash also earlier in the week by former teammate Marshawn Lynch.
Talk about being back in Oakland, man. What's up with it?
What have you been doing with yourself?
Right now. I ain't been doing nothing.
I know, but how do you feel about being back in the city running this football? Look, hey, no. Right here,
listen,
man,
let's
right
talk.
Here. Look, and I just told you, I don't run on the huddle and mess up your huddle and mess up with your job on the field and mess up your job.
Huddle, right, you don't.
So I'm trying to ask you a question that people want to know.
But this is different.
I
ain't come over here for nothing. I came over here to holler at my dog and his partner.
I love you, man.
What's up?
That's my guy right
How's it feel to be back on the team?
Man, that's cool. You gonna do the normal thing, right? And ask questions about all.
What you want to give back to this community, man?
Life.
Explain that.
Mike, it's life, man.
Okay.
You know, we can sit here and you know how we do when we chop it up, but that ain't for everybody.
I know we can't chop it up like
so. That's what I'm saying. But is everybody good though? You good?
We're good.
You good?
We're good that
all
you're
right,
here
I'm gonna
now.
let you go ahead and do your thing though, player.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
All right.
So I remember when that first came out. It was a couple days ago, and people gave Marshawn Lynch flack for that. They said that he was hitting on the girl. Like, come on, really? Give me a break. You know? That's what I'm saying,
come
right?
on, man.
But I love what he says. I'm not shy. I'm on the record saying, look, I'm off the Lynch hype train until he produces on the field. You know, I want to see him do something for the Raiders instead of giving him already a free pass. But I love what he does for the community, man. How can you not love what this guy means for that city of Oakland, especially during the time and all that kind of stuff, right? What do you want to give back to this community? Life, period, right? Life, right? Community events, camps, football camps, right? Buying them sponsorships to different community centers in the area and stuff like that. Like, he's all about the community and stuff, and I love that aspect about what he's brought with him and stuff. It's cool.
It is. It's very cool. It's very cool stuff. I was trying to find the name of that report. Oh, is it Wolf? Colleen Wolf. It's Colleen Wolf. That's who it is. So Colleen Wolf is the other one on the set, and yeah, I don't think he's hitting on her. I mean, he's just being friendly. Is it flirty? Yeah, a little bit, but is it inappropriate? Not by any means, man. I don't think so at all. And I think that it's just he's a lighthearted guy again, taking what he does seriously when he talks about he's going to run the football through an MRFer's mouth, right? But when he's being himself, when he's on a set, going over to say hi to his former teammate and good friend Michael Robinson, he's just going over to say hi, man. He's just a lighthearted dude, man. So I love it. I think it's great. And I know that you've reserved your seat on the hype train until you see him produce on the field, and I think rightfully so. But yeah, there is no disputing what he has brought to this team as far as a motivational factor and a passion and a love, for the team and the community, and the fact that he brings this lighthearted nature and this fun nature to the team is what's to be celebrated. And anybody giving him a bad time for it, quit it.
Yeah, and whether or not he produces on the field or off the field, he brings life to the community where he's at. I don't know if you've seen him, Murf. There was a video released of Macklemore's, one of his new videos. Marshawn Lynch is in it, and the little kids are stealing Brady's jersey, and Marshawn Lynch is in the video, and it's just that's who he is. So I love his character. However, I'm not gonna deem him the second coming quite yet to the Raiders until we see what he does on the field.
I got my Raiders boxers hanging low, covering the crack, because I'm listening to Raiders Fan Radio, a podcast by a couple of fans, Sonny and Murf, 4 Raiders fans who are the only fans that matter.
Kind of old news now, Murf, but we talked about it forever. Conley is cleared. Conley is cleared. Mackenzie stated earlier, this smile tell you anything. I'm excited for Breon. He was charged with rape. I think it was a couple weeks prior to the draft. Prior to him being charged, he was a top 10 pick. Mackenzie took a chance on him at 24, stating that he did his homework. A lot of people questioned Reggie Mackenzie, saying, how could you have done your homework in only 2 weeks? Mackenzie stuck to his gun, said, I did my homework. I trust the young man. Drafted him at 24. It was a shock to, I think, everybody. You almost died live on the air as we did that. I think it's Scott Winter's second favorite point of his career, besides asking Mark Davis a question, was talking to you off the ledge on draft night on our show. So, there was a lot of question marks around Conley, not even about his play. It was all about the legal stuff. Mackenzie took a chance. He's cleared. You got to think that's a huge relief for Reggie Mackenzie. And now Conley can focus on playing once his shin splints get better. So he's cleared, but now he has injuries, right? That's got to suck for the dude. But regardless of all that, he's cleared. Our number 1 draft pick is going to be okay legally. And for all intents and purposes, number 1, number 2, and number 3 could be could have huge impact on the season this year. And how's that going to look for Mackenzie's drafting record, right? If we hit on the top 3, get out of here.
Well, the Raiders fan radio microphones were there on site when it was announced to Gary and Conley that they was going to have no charges filed against him. And good for him, man. I've dogged this draft pick as much as anybody, because I was confused at, 1, the need for it, but 2, the amount of risk that was involved in a first round pick when there was so much that was up in the air and pending. And, Reggie was right, and he did the right thing, and I'm glad to be proven, I don't want to say wrong, because I didn't really, claim to know anything. I just had a feeling about it, and based on the facts that were presented to us as fans. But, I'm glad that my skepticism was unfounded. I'm glad that he is an innocent young man. I'm pissed that there's a young woman out there that put his life and his career path and everything at risk by these false accusations. And I don't know what her story was. You get the feeling like this, and I'm not getting in the weeds on this stuff, but you get the feeling like this was a consensual thing that she regretted and then chose to, make an issue out of it and with this potential rape case. And I feel my heart goes out to not only him for being put under that and having all the things that go along with it, having your character be called into question and becoming such a national news story, but my heart goes out to her that she was in that kind of a position that she felt like she had to do what she did. It's just a bad situation. You hate to see it. You hate to hear about it. And hopefully this will be now a time for not only him to move on with his life, but her to move on with hers. And as a Raiders fan on the field, then, Reggie, good call. Let's see if the kid can play now. Unless now, from this point forward, we can just focus on the X's and O's of it all.
And you got to think, just a huge sigh of relief for him, and it is freedom. And unfortunately, he's hurt, so we can't get on the field right now. Hopefully, we'll see him in training camp. And we already kind of talked about it previously. Now we have a plethora of cornerbacks to choose from, and I'm excited. I'm more excited beyond football that this guy isn't going to, have legal issues. That's a pretty serious charge. So hopefully all gets worked out and we get to see him on the field making plays for the Raiders.
Hey, so this is Uncle Mosh, and apparently all you got to do to host a podcast is have a microphone, a garage, and a couple of Derek Carr jerseys. Ha! These two did it. You're listening to Raiders Fan Radio with Sonny and Murf.
Murph, there's a lot of hate out there for Jerry Jones. A lot of hate out there for the Cowboys. A lot of hate in Raider Nation for really anybody who's not affiliated or a part of the Raiders. However, with Jerry Jones, I think there needs to be a little bit of grace given to Jerry Jones when it comes to Raiders fans. And I think there's 3 reasons for that. Number one, his relationship with Al Davis, as we all know, was very close. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Murph, Jerry Jones was the only owner to go to Al Davis's funeral. Isn't that correct?
That's the way I understood it, yes.
Yeah. So they had a close relationship. Secondly, Jerry Jones kind of helped the Raiders get to Vegas. I mean, there's a lot of what really happened behind closed doors, but I think everybody knows Jerry Jones had a hand to play in it, right? And then last night, on Saturday night, Jerry Jones was inducted into the Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame. And he didn't talk about Al Davis or Mark Davis, but he talked about John Madden. And he talked about Madden like I never heard before. I didn't know that Jerry Jones really felt this way about John Madden, but he had reverence for John Madden. And I thought it was really cool because Madden is kind of one of those guys who kind of gets lost in the best coach of all time kind of conversations, you know? You don't hear his name brought up outside of Raider Nation very much as being a great coach and for whatever. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because he's had so much time after his coaching career in front of the camera as something else, and then people just assume or think that, well, you know, yeah, he coached the Raiders, but that's more of an afterthought because they know him more as a announcer. But John Madden was one of the greatest coaches of all time, and I thought it was really cool. It made me respect Jerry Jones a lot more, the fact that he paid homage to Madden last night. That was pretty cool. And he gave a couple different quotes about what he said and you know what Madden told him and stuff like that. But just the overall gist, and one of the quotes was about, you know, the personalities involved with the Cowboys and stuff like that. And this is what Madden said. He said, "Jerry, the Cowboys have all the flash." Oh, go ahead. You have audio?
We've got it right here. Yeah.
Yeah. So play the audio. Then.
One of the persons who has been so special in my life and who loves this game more than anyone I've ever known is John Madden. There's no man I respect more for his love of this sport. His belief in the virtues of what football stands for, no one believes it more than John Madden. John was enshrined here in the Hall of Fame in 2006. On that day, as he always did, John held his audience in the palm of his hand. He talked about how when they turn out the lights tonight in the hall, the bus talked to each other. Many of you may remember it. John, I know you're watching. I love you. Tonight when they turn out the lights in the hall, I can't wait to look over and talk to you and tell you how much you mean to me. Thank you, John.
You know, Murph, I mean, that's a class act. That's a super class act. So I got a lot more respect for Jerry Jones. You know, I'm sure he's probably crooked behind closed doors when it comes to business. Who isn't? But that was really cool, man. Something that kind of caught me off guard. So I thought it was worth mentioning on the show.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that it's very legit. And, you know, look, we're not Cowboys fans by any means. And you know, I wasn't really too tickled, and as I'm sure a lot of Raider fans were, about this Hall of Fame class. You know, when you look at in relatively recent history, we've had Stabler, we've had Madden, we've had Timmy Brown. Like, we've had some pretty solid representatives of Raider Nation going into the Hall of Fame. And now this year we have Kurt Warner, a Charger, who I won't name, a Bronco I won't name, a Dolphin/Jet, a Seahawk, a kicker, and Cowboys owner Jerry friggin' Jones. So I'm like, if there's ever a year for me to not watch the Hall of Fame speeches, this is pretty much it.
This is the year, yeah.
This is the year, right? So I really hadn't seen a lot of this stuff, but then I saw this came across the news, across Twitter, whatever it was, like you did, and I saw that he was complimentary of John Madden. I thought, well, that's worth it, certainly, not only viewing but acknowledging on our show. And you know, you made a very good point that he was a huge supporter of Al Davis, subsequently a huge supporter of Mark Davis, and that there is a certain admiration to Al and the way that Al stood up to the league and was the maverick that he was. And you could tell that Jerry Jones modeled a lot of his owner behavior to the likes of Al Davis. Now, what I didn't realize is that I knew that he had the reverence for Al, but I didn't know he had this reverence for John Madden either. Now, clearly he does, and that was formed clearly when Al was in his heyday in the 70s and doing all the things that he did, and there even the 60s, frankly, when he was, the commissioner of the AFL and all the things that he did. His coach there not long after was John Madden. So I'm guessing, I don't know, I didn't have dinner with Jerry last night, but I'm guessing that that's when his high opinion of John Madden was formed. And then when you look at, the years in the 90s when the Cowboys were winning Super Bowls, who was calling all those games? Who was calling those NFC Championship games? It was John Madden and Pat Summerall. So you know that those guys formed a relationship that went beyond his admiration of John on the field as a coach, and then began to form as, they would have production meetings and whatnot about the Cowboys and what they were doing. So yeah, I think it was very, very cool that Jerry Jones took that opportunity to acknowledge John and to cite him as a big influence. And then, coincidentally enough, you had Jerry Jones going into the Hall of Fame as an owner. A lot to do with what he had done, was I mentioned, with those Cowboy teams in the 90s. And then now here you got the conversation then shifts into his coach at the time, Jimmy Johnson, about, why is Jimmy Johnson not being considered to be in the Hall of Fame? And Jimmy is one of the, as we know, few, or he's on the short list of head coaches that have won 2 Super Bowls and are not in the Hall of Fame. Another is Tom Coughlin, who Tom is still in the league, so he's not eligible. Mike Shanahan, who is not in the league now, but isn't hit the 5-year period of being out of football to become eligible for the Hall of Fame. And then I'll give you one wild guess, Sonny, and who the last Super Bowl, 2-time winning Super Bowl head coach is that is also eligible but not yet in the Hall of Fame.
That's a hard question, Murph. Let me see here. Probably not Lane Kiffin. No, probably not him. Probably not Tom Cable. No, probably not Art Shell.
Tom Cable. Nice pull.
Probably not Dennis Allen. No, probably not Dennis
Allen.
Allen.
There you go. No,
probably not Hugh Jackson either. Probably not
Hugh Jackson.
No.
No.
Tom Flores.
Tom Flores, 2-time winning,
2-time
Super
Tommy,
Bowl champion,
2-time Tommy,
2-time Tommy, and 2-time Tommy. Although it was the same team, the only, as far as I can tell, somebody tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the only 2-time Super Bowl winning coach, 2 different cities, not 2 different. Yes, same team, but 2 different cities.
Does that count? Same team, 2 different cities. Does that count?
You know what a pain in the ass it is to move a team? You know how hard that is? No, Look at what the Rams have gone through. Look what the Oilers went through when they became the Titans.
I did it once in Madden. I had to change hot dog prices and stuff. It was a pain in the ass.
But look what the Browns went through when they went to Baltimore. I mean, the Colts. I mean, you think of all the teams that move, they don't have success right away. I mean, and, the Raiders, won it a year later? I think that's a huge accomplishment to keep that all together. And not only did they win, but they won dominantly. I mean, that was Black Sunday, bro. That was killer, man.
And then we tweeted out, a little bit brashly, Kurt Warner into the Hall of Fame before Plunkett. Not a knock against Kurt Warner, but why is Plunkett not in the Super Bowl, not in the Hall of Fame? This comes up every single year too, doesn't it? He's the only 2-time Super Bowl champion to not be in the Hall of Fame. They just not respect. What is it, Murph? If you had to boil it down to one thing, why do you think he gets looked over for not being in the Hall of Fame?
I think because he came in relief. I mean, if I'm thinking of this purely objectively, as take my silver and black Raider heart out of my chest and try to think of this, what the reasoning would be is that there's a couple of things. Kurt Warner took 2 different teams to the Super Bowl, which is very rare. You don't see a lot of that.
He didn't win both of them. He only won one.
No, he only won one, but he
came close with the Cardinals.
And if it wasn't for a freaking one of the greatest plays in the history of the Super Bowl, actually 2 of the greatest plays in the history of the Super Bowl, not only that Santonio Holmes catch, but that interception return off of Kurt Warner, then they probably win that game. But But I think that, so a couple things is that his list of accomplishments is pretty strong. And when you look at what he had, the headwinds that he had facing him to accomplish those things, it's pretty impressive. And he's recent. And I think that that's a lot of what the Hall of Fame falls victim to when they make a lot of these suggestions, is that who's most recent? Who's the, fresh on the mind, right? Yeah. Well, so I think that's what's got Plunkett. And then the other thing that's got working against him is that he came in relief. I mean, Dan Pastorini was the quarterback of the Oakland Raiders. He got hurt, and Jim Plunkett went in relief. And while he played great, he wasn't necessarily the reason, much like, nobody talks about how great Jeff Hostetler was winning the Super Bowl with the Giants. Because everybody knows that's Phil Simms' team. Phil Simms got hurt, and Hostetler came in and did a very admirable job and won a friggin' Super Bowl. But that was Phil Simms. You know what I mean? That kind of paved the way. So I think in retrospect, Pastorini or whoever, the Raiders running game, whatever you want to call it, defense, guys like Rod Martin, right, paved the way for Plunkett's success. He just kind of came in at the right time. But still, no matter what, though, and that's the argument against it. I don't even know how firmly I believe that. I'm just throwing it out there because if we're going to consider something, I think that would be it. But he's still a two-time Super Bowl winning champion quarterback like that. I mean, you still can't, take that away from him. And in my mind, there has been 3 glaring omissions from the Hall of Fame from a Raiders perspective for a long time now, and that was Stabler, Flores, and Plunkett. Now, we got Snake in, thankfully. Sadly, it was posthumously, and hopefully we get Tom Flores in before it's too late. Not to be morbid about it, but he's getting up there a little bit. You want to see the guy get inducted while he's still alive, for crying out loud, Hall of Fame. Let's get that together. So you want to see that. Jim's still got a long way to go still. Thankfully, I know he's had some health issues here lately, but he's still, in life expectancy terms, a relatively young man and going to be around for a while. So hopefully he'll get in later on down the road as well. But there is also another one. Those are the big 3, but then, there's a lot of talk here lately about 2 others. One is Cliff Branch, which is a very interesting thing to think about because you talk about that's a 3-time Super Bowl guy. And while he doesn't have huge numbers, neither did Stallworth, neither did Lynn Swann. They showed up when it counted most. They were clutch. They won Super Bowls. That's what got him in. Well, so did Cliff Branch. So if it's good enough for Stallworth and Swann, it ought to be good enough for Cliff Branch. And then the other one that's Raider related is Amy Trask. There is currently only one female in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and that is Leslie Visser, longtime broadcaster, sideline reporter, kind of paved the way for a lot of females that are involved in the journalistic aspect of the NFL. And Amy Trask, nobody's in, as far as what she did in the front office and ran the ship essentially for all those years. Of course, we know that Al is always the man, but she's the one that carried out all of what Al's wishes were. She was the one that stood up to Al. Look, there haven't been very many people in the world in the history of the Raiders organization that stood up to him and lived to tell about it, and she was one of them. You know what I mean? So if you got somebody like Al Davis that respected her and put her in the positions that he did and she flourished in them, that's a pretty strong case for the Hall of Fame as well. So another 2 interesting considerations there. I don't know about the Branch one. I mean, what do you think? I think that we see Tom and Jim get in before we see Cliff, but I think that there's a fair argument for him and then, of course, also for Amy as well.
I think the problem now with Cliffy is that it's been so long. And I think your point you made earlier about, what have you done for me lately? He played with the Raiders, 72 to 85? So he's been out of the league now for close to 30 years. At one point, right, he was the fastest guy in the league, and I never watched him play. I was too young to even remember. But hearing from my dad, it was like Cliff Branch was your speed guy, and Biletnikoff was your, stick 'em guy, if you will.
Your hands guy.
Your first, third down, where's Freddie? And so, but, Branch kind of paved the way for that deep pass. In 1974, he caught 60 balls for 1,000 yards. You know what his average yards per catch was, Murph?
Oof, a lot.
18, dude. He averaged 18 yards a catch, right? In 76, he had 46 catches for 1,100 yards. That was the Super Bowl winning team, right?
Wow.
He averaged 24 yards of reception and had 12 touchdowns that year.
That's crazy, dude. Bombs away or what?
That's what I'm saying, right? So,
Sheesh.
So he was your first Randy Moss before there was a Randy Moss. I mean, looking at his stats, his average yards per catch going down from 72 to 85 was 13, 15, 18, 17, 24, 16, 14, 19, 15, 19, 17, and 14, right? You take away his first rookie year when he had caught 3 balls for 41 yards. Outside of that, his lowest yards per catch was 14.3 in 1979. So the dude caught passes deep, right? Like he was a speedster. He caught the deep ball. And so in that respect, maybe you put him in as like the pioneer of the deep ball. I mean, I don't know, but dude, in 76, 46 catches for 1,100 yards. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's Madden numbers when you get that rookie.
Those Madden numbers.
Who has a 10 for route running, but he's 97 speed. Just send him on a deep pass and hit him 3 times a game, right? I mean, that's nuts. So, should he be in? I mean, it's hard to, when you're a Raiders fan, everybody Raiders should be in, right? But Cliffy did, at one point, dominate the league. So I don't know. I think he should.
Well, and I think that's ultimately where I come out on Hall of Fame considerations, is that it's hard to, now those numbers that you just mentioned, those are comparable and those are qualifying. But a lot of times when you're starting to look at different eras of the sport, the numbers move, right? Like nowadays we're in such a pass-heavy offense. These numbers that the quarterbacks are putting up to try to compare the numbers of Drew Brees to Johnny Unitas or Bart Starr, and you can't do it. And so you can't say that, they're one's better than the other because of the numbers. So what I always like to look at is, were they the best at their position at the time that they played, and how did they compare to those that played during that era? And when you look at who Cliff Branch's peers were and his competitors, it was Paul Warfield, and it was Swan and Stallworth, and it was those guys. And yes, he stood at worst neck and neck with them, if not exceeded what they did. Because as you said, he had the regular season, and he did something that, now granted, the Raiders and Al Davis and his philosophies on offense are what changed the sport, but he was the personnel. Him and Kenny,
he carried it
were the
out,
guys.
man.
Right? They're the guys that carried it out. So you know what I mean? So I'm with you, man. And really, I feel stronger now about it than going into this. Now, after hearing you kind of break it down that way and then considering it that way, I think that there's really a very strong and fair consideration for Cliff Branch for the Hall of Fame if you consider it that way.
Well, so Randy Moss, arguably maybe one of the best receivers of this most current generation or previous generation. His best year was the 2007 year, right? Remember when Brady would just chuck it up? And they went undefeated regular season, but lost in the Super Bowl. But
18-1.
18-1. His yards per catch that year was only 15 yards per catch, 15.2.
Wow.
So he didn't even come close. His rookie year, he was 19 yards per catch. Outside of that, he had an 18.7, a 16. I mean, he averaged double digits every single year as well, but he doesn't come close to Branch in that 24.2 in 1976. I mean, that is unheard of, dude. That's a quarter of the field every time he catches the ball. Now, I think what might hurt him is he only had 2 seasons of over 10 touchdowns. He had in 76, he had 12 touchdowns, and in 74, he had 13. So do you think that's hurting him, that he didn't have as many touchdown catches?
It could be, because that's what Moss did, right? Moss was a touchdown machine. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Cliffy wasn't a red zone threat at all. That's where your Snake is throwing to guys. If they're not, well, first off, they're probably running the ball back then. But if somebody is going to catch a pass, it's Freddie B or it's Dave Casper, right? Those are your hands guys. Those are your short yardage guys. Those are the guys with the crazy moves. I mean, you look at Biletnikoff run routes, man. It's just, he just jukes people out of their freaking cleats nonstop. I mean, the guy could just, cut on a dime, so those are your guys that are scoring a lot of, and I don't even know what Biletnikoff's numbers are, but I know they're more than Cliff Branch probably when it comes to scoring touchdowns, because I know that exactly what you're saying, that Cliff wasn't the guy. He was the guy that, 1st and 10 from their own 20, Stabler's bombing it out. You know what I mean? Because that's what their philosophy was back then, right? Hit him early, hit him early. You know, start or on a turnover. First thing you do out of a turnover, bombs away.
Exactly.
Like that was Al's philosophy. You know what I mean? So he was the guy that was catching the ball, getting tackled way downfield, and then setting up the guys for the short yardage. So, yeah, I think that probably hurts him a little bit. Where Moss was you know, he was the guy that was going up in the red zone and taking the ball away from people because he just had that uncanny ability to high point the football and just go up there and snag it. You know what I mean? Which was just, I don't think we've ever seen a player like that with that combination of speed and size and jumping ability and everything. I mean, Moss was just literally a freak. So, yeah, I think that when you try to compare him to Cliff Branch, that it's a little favorable to guys like Randy. But again, go back to the argument of what did he do at the time that he played? Did he change the game? Did he set a precedent? Did he stand neck and neck or above and beyond what his peers were? Yes, absolutely. And that alone should get you consideration for the Hall of Fame.
I think so, but you know, it's hard with your Raider goggles on and stuff. And everybody who ever played with Silver and Black should get in, except for maybe Jay Schrader and Todd Marinovich. But outside of them, everybody should be in.
You're listening to The Violator, and I'm live on Raider Fan Radio. Where you at, baby?
And finally, our last topic of the evening, probably the most scariest topic because you don't know what's going to happen, is Murph's black hole of the internet. So go ahead, Murph. I'm going to make a Clash of Clans attack.
You make a Clash of Clans attack while I talk about the Romanowskis. That's right. No, excuse me. No, I just messed it all up. While I talk about the Romanskis, not the Romanowskis like Bill, but the Romanskis. While you're making that Clash of Clans attack, Sonny, I want to ask you a question. Who is the current equipment manager for the Oakland Raiders?
The current equipment manager for the Oakland Raiders?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but he better not deflate no balls.
Hey-oh, his name is Bobby Romanski. And this story came to my attention because there was a Las Vegas 8 Channel News, live from Las Vegas, Channel 8. They had a story on Bobby Romanski. He's the current equipment manager for our Oakland Raiders. Do you know that there has been 2 equipment managers in the history of the Oakland Raiders?
Only 2.
Yeah. Do you know who the other one is?
No clue, but I'm thinking it's probably related to Bobby Romanski somehow.
You are correct. That is Dick Romanski.
Bobby Romanski is the Raiders' equipment manager. His father worked 5 decades as the Raiders' main equipment guy. Now, this is the only life Bobby has ever known.
I grew up as a young kid going to training camp with my father, and when I got out of high school, I was asked to come and work for a year or so, and I said, sure, I'll check out for a year, and 40 years later, I'm still here.
So after seeing this news story post up on Las Vegas 8 and watching it come across Twitter and learning that the only equipment managers in the entire history of the Raiders organization were a father and son, Richard and Bobby Romanski, it led me to start thinking into this.
Murph's Black Hole of the Internet.
A journey that begins where everything ends.
Dick Romanski had an almost 50-year career with the Oakland Raiders. Sadly, we lost him a few years ago at 86 years old. But prior to that, in his almost 50-year career, he was a very close friend of Al Davis, and Al asked him to head up. He had a handful of different jobs with the Raiders, but Al asked him to head up the equipment for the team. Dick Romanski was Mark Davis's first boss. He actually brought Mark on to the staff and used to have Mark not only help pick up the locker room, but would give him cans of turpentine to clean stickum off of the helmets and all the everything else of the equipment for the Raiders. For those of you that don't know what stickum is, it's this gooey, sticky substance that long before teams used to have these gloves that now guys like OBJ can catch a football with 3 fingers. Back then, before they had those kinds of gloves, they would put stickum on their hands. And you know who brought stickum to the Oakland Raiders? Dick Romanski. First guy.
Interesting.
Yes, the guy that brought the stickum. And when you look at old pictures and old footage of the Raiders, especially guys like Fred Biletnikoff, they're covered in this goo. This substance is all over. Guys like Lester Hayes used to have it all over their socks and everything. When Hayes would get down in that really super low crouch and get ready to cover that wide receiver, he would wipe his hands on his socks and get this stickum on his hands. He also, if you watch old videos of the Raiders, you see there's a guy that used to feed Biletnikoff gum, and in the locker room used to light cigarettes for him. Well, that's Dick Romanski, because Biletnikoff had so much damn glue on his hands, he couldn't get his own gum out, and he loved to chew gum during the game. So Dick Romanski would feed spearmint bubble gum to Fred Biletnikoff during the games. Well, after his 50-year career, he gave the reins over to his son, Bobby Romanski, who was the base of this article. And Bobby Romanski has now been the equipment manager for the Oakland Raiders for 22 years. So now when we look at the history of the equipment managers in the NFL, it's not like you can go to Wikipedia and find a list of tenured equipment managers, right? There is no easy way to look at and see who's done what for how long. So I went down Murph's black hole of the internet to dig in a little bit, and here's what I've found. Not only are we the coolest organization and the most dominant organization in the entire history of sports, but we have the record for the longest tenured equipment manager in the history of the league almost twice, because Dick, just shy of 50 years, it was like 49, almost 50 years. He's by far the furthest, at least that I could find. And look, again, there's not like a web source for this to compare to other guys. So just in doing a search the best I could, it looks that he is number 1, okay? His son Bobby is in the top 10 at 22 years. After that, you have the Vikings have a guy named Dennis Ryan, has been with their organization for 42 years. The Saints had one named Dan Simmons, who was also 42 years. The Patriots sadly lost theirs not long ago. Don Brocher, who is also a 41-year equipment manager. And then you have 3 guys that equal 22, that equal Bobby Romanski, and that is Mike Davidson from the Chiefs, Bill Simmons from the Cardinals, and Eddie Carroll at the Ravens. So by next year, the Raiders will have the record, have 2 guys. So they'll have Dick Romanski at 50 years and his son Bobby at 23. So that will then take the lead, and they will have 2 guys in the top 4 for the longest tenured equipment managers in the NFL. And one more fun story about Dick Romanski. There's an old wives' tale about the Raiders, and that is that they used to write obscenities on the football. And they used to write bad things on the football and then give them to the teams that were playing in Oakland, so that when the other teams lined up, that they would read these obscenities like FU or whatever on the football, right? Well, it turns out the truth to that story is that the Raiders didn't do that to try to get the goat of the opposing team. It turns out that the players used to steal footballs from practice, and they would take them home and give them to their kids and stuff. So Dick Romanski started writing FU on the footballs, so the players wouldn't take them and give them to their kids. And since the players didn't take them to give them to their kids, they found their way into the games, and that's how a lot of times that the opposing center would line up and look down and see FU written on the football. So, anyways, good stuff. Congratulations to the Romanskis, and there's our Murph's black hole of the internet.
That was a good one. That was a good. That might have been your best black hole ever. That was pretty good. I like that you got to the bottom of the cuss words on the footballs, because that was always a question, right? Like, oh, the Raiders are so ruthless, they even do this. No, actually, that was to prevent them from stealing the balls in practice. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Deter thievery amongst the team.
Yeah. A little thievery and stuff like that.
Pillaging just for fun, Sonny.
There you go. All right, that concludes episode number 40. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, special props to Rodney and Nick for winning the contest with deadpiratesports.com, getting the gift bag and $25 gift card. We're still doing the call-in contest. Call in, tell us about your fandom. Tell us why you became a Raiders fan or maybe why you still are a Raiders fan, and you'll enter the running for another $25 gift card to deadpiratesports.com, who's currently running buy a jersey, get a free 3x5 flag for only $50. They are the Nike jerseys that are stitched on, so $25 gets you halfway there. You also get a pretty good gift bag as well. The call-in number for that is 909-345-3346. Again, that number is 909-345-3346. Find Raiders Fan Radio on Twitter, Facebook, all across all the podcast directories that you listen to. Our website is RaidersFanRadio.com. And anything else, Murph, before we go?
Just a couple quick thank yous. Number one, to Jeff Haskins for hooking us up with those prizes for everybody to give out and, making those deals available. I got my eye on that white Howie Long jersey, man. I think I've wanted a Howie jersey for a long, long time, and I think I'm finally going to pull the trigger on that and get a Raider Nation flag to go along with it. So that's so many thanks to him and the opportunities that he's given us to be able to provide to our listeners. So thanks, Jeff, and then also thanks to all the listeners out there and everybody that's interacting on us on social media. I'm telling you, I think that Sonny and I both have been humbled by the amount of support and the amount of interaction and everything that you all have done out there. It makes what we do so much fun. I mean, we do this anyways. We've always said that the reason that we decided to do a podcast was because we kind of talk about this stuff anyways, so we might as well flip on some microphones and see if anybody wants to hear a couple of knuckleheads engage in some conversation about the Raiders. But the fact that it's turned into this participatory thing and this interactive type environment now where we have you all reaching out to us, and not only the voicemails but the Facebook messages and the Twitter interactions and just all the likes on the page. We just can't thank you guys enough. It's super, super cool, and I look forward to seeing where this thing grows and goes to, and so can't appreciate you enough. One last thing too, continue to support the show by liking and subscribing on either iTunes or Google Play. That does us a big solid because that drives us up the charts and gets additional exposure for the show. So the more of that, the merrier. And thanks again for all you've done already.
Thanks again to Chuck, New Jersey chapter of the Blackhole, for calling into the show. We're going to get him on the show next week, so that'll be a fun interview. Appreciate Chuck being willing to come on the show. Also next week, we're going to talk about the Titans game. I think it's almost a month away, Murph, so we're going to be live at the Titans game doing a show there. We'll talk about the details, how you can get on the show, and all that kind of fun stuff. So next week, I think we're going to record Saturday prior to the preseason game. We'll talk about that and hopes and expectations for that. And until then, man, it's Raider Nation, wherever, forever.
I came over here to holler at my dog and his partner.